For the longest time, I've had this discussion on my channel about what brands are releasing a lot of products versus what brands are releasing less product, what brands we are feeling overwhelmed with, and what brands we feel are just like, the Goldilocks of releases, just enough. And this year, I decided to dive into the actual numbers and statistics of this feeling that I've been having the past couple of years to look into what are the brands that are actually releasing a lot of products, and how much products are some of these brands releasing that we feel are releasing so much. I'm gonna do some comparisons between last year, 2024, and 2025. I'm also gonna do some comparisons between mainstream and indie, because I have this hypothesis, which is we feel like a brand is releasing more when they're releasing the same product several times, i.e. eyeshadow palettes. Because we keep saying that some brands release a lot of things. Well, they might not be the brand that releases the most, but because they release an eyeshadow palette every time they release something, we kind of get this feeling that they're releasing more than other brands. So I'm going to go through some numbers. We're going to talk about a couple, again, I said I have spreadsheets, plural. I'm going to show you some pictures. We're going to talk about the indie brands that release the most versus the mainstream brands that release the most. We're going to compare them to 2024, and then we're going to talk about this hypothesis. Does eyeshadow palettes make it feel like a brand is releasing more than some others? So I have a lot of statistics to go through, and to make this video not too crazy long, I've already gathered all of this information, and I am going to give you the top 3 of releases when it comes to numbers in the mainstream category versus the indie category. There are some other brands, of course, that also released slightly around the same number of releases, but we're going to do the top 3, and then we're going to compare it to 2024. And also, when I talk about a release, I don't necessarily talk about a single product. I talk more about a release date. Sometimes they'll have a release on, let's say, April 24th, and they'll release a collection. I count that as one release. So this is me thinking how it's more about how often they are releasing. How often are some brands releasing, and do we feel like it's more often than it actually is? So before I get into the top 3 of mainstream brands, let me know down in the comments, what do you think are the 3 mainstream brands that I caught wind of and that I thought are the brands that release the most in indie and in mainstream? Let me know down in the comments. I'll give you a couple of seconds to write down your answers before we get into it. And of course, this is not the end-all be-all. I might have missed something. Well, we try to do our best with the research, but we might have missed something. So, in 2025, the top releases in mainstreams are... Is anybody surprised to see ColourPop at top with 18 releases? But 18 releases still isn't as much as it could be, because they released 25 releases in 2024. And then 2024 was still a pretty chill year compared to, remember 2020, 2021, but they did 1 release a week. Every Thursday was ColourPop Day. That was bananas. 18 releases, NYX 15 releases, and Charlotte Tilbury 11 releases. Now, think about those brands. Did you think that NYX and Charlotte Tilbury was going to be in the top? Is it because I don't think Charlotte Tilbury has released... She has 1 eyeshadow palette released this year. I think NYX has 1 or 2. NYX releases a lot of products. But maybe it doesn't feel so much because it's a variety of products. Let's go through, actually. I have it here on my phone. Let's go through some of the products that they've released. We can refresh our minds. Let's start with Charlotte Tilbury. And I think this is somewhat in chronological order. She released the 9 pan palettes, and that's what I said. There was those monochromatic small palettes that came out in the beginning of the year. And then she had the Pillow Talk Beauty Soul Mates Duos. Then she had the Rock and Cold Quick Kajal eyeliners. And then she had that collab with Ginseng Impact, which was odd. It was a little odd. I've heard since someone told me that it's very, very popular in Asia, apparently, to do a collab where you do existing products and just change packaging. Here, in the US, and also I would say in Sweden, we call that collab lacy, but apparently some people told me in Asia they want those kind of collabs. I thought it was really interesting to hear. Please give me some thoughts about that down below. Then we have the Glowgasm Face Palette, the Unreal Lip and Cheek Blush Glow Sticks, and a Healthy Glow Oil. And then there is a lip mask. There is a Flawless Spray and Foundation. There was a Star Confidence release, and then Instant Look in a Palette, which was the cheek and eye collection that came out for holidays. There's been a lot of products from Charlotte Tilbury this year, and I actually only think that I have tried the foundation, which I absolutely despise, by the way. It was in the worst products of the year. If you want to see what product I absolutely did not like, that foundation was part of it. That video is already live, but I thought it was really interesting that there are so many products from Charlotte Tilbury. Some of those might actually have been released at the same time though, now that I like look at that. And then we go down to NYX Cosmetics. NYX had the Fat Oil Chills that was released in the beginning of the year. Buttermelt highlighters. Those so nice. Those were in my favorites of the year, the powder highlighters. And then they had the Epic Ink glitter eyeliners, the Minecraft, who remembers Minecraft collection? That left my brain. That feels like it was in 2019. I literally cannot believe that that happened this year. That is absolutely crazy. The Smooshy Matte Lip Balms, the Brow Glue Crazy Lift Brow Laminate, which I actually have in my brows today. Really love it. Fat Cheeks Liquid Blush, which I did not buy because the swatches of them looked like cooking oil on the cheeks. Ooh. Wonder Snatch Concealer, Wednesday Collection, Lip Stain Pen, Wonder Snatch Powders, the Bridgerton Royal Collection, Gingerbread Holiday Collection, Jelly Job, and then the Buttermilk Sticks highlighter sticks, which also came with a new foundation and some new, they released a full collection. It was like powder, foundation, highlighter sticks, eyeliner pens. There was a bunch of things in that collection. NYX has released so much this year, like so much. There are so many things that have come from NYX. But then of course we have ColourPop. ColourPop started with the Pretty Fresh setting spray and primers. Then they had the Twilight New Moon collection. Can you believe that was this year? Again, it feels like that was like a decade ago. They had the Shadow of Secrets, which was that like loosely based on romantasy books collection. Tinted Foundation Balm. I love that one. That one was so nice. I still use that one. I used that a couple of days ago. So Juicy Plumping Gloss in Shimmers. The Toy Story collection. Crazy. Glowy Liquid Blushes. Their best release this year. Tangled collection. The Birthday Super Shock Shadow. Lilo and Stitch collection. Hydra Pop Glossy Lip Stains. Fresh Kiss Lip Masks and Lip Scrubs. That lip mask in Pistachio Gelato. Love it. I use it every day. Shrek collection, the Grinch collection, and then they had the Fresh Kiss Peppermint collection, and then they also had the Fresh Kiss Metallic collection the week after. Then they re-released the Multichrome Shadow Sticks from the Winx collection, and they just had an ultra glossy lip based on Disney Princesses collection. I need some water. ColourPop, even though this was a slow year for them, they're bananas. But remember those numbers that we had. We had ColourPop with 18, NYX with 15, Charlotte Tilbury with 11. Now let's talk about the indie brands. These are the indie brands that have the most releases this year. And again, did you pull in your answers? Do you think you know which ones they're gonna be? I actually have a top 5, but I'm only gonna talk about the top 3. Even though I think sometimes we think that indie brands release more than mainstream brands, I hope that these numbers will show you that that's just not the case. Even though I will say the number 1 and number 2 definitely have released a lot this year. So Bella Beauté Bar, number 1 with 10 releases, Unearthly Cosmetics, number 2 with 10 releases, and Blend Bunny Cosmetics, number 3 with 3 releases. So I'm not surprised that it's Bella Beauté Bar, because I have been actually a little bit surprised at the amount of releases that they've had this year. And I think the reason why we think that it's so much is because every release is an eyeshadow palette. Sometimes there's something else with it, but every release is an eyeshadow palette. Unearthly Cosmetics have had some releases that are not eyeshadow palettes, and Blend Bunny has had most releases have been an eyeshadow palette. But 8 to 10 palettes a year is a lot, especially when they are pretty expensive. So let's go through and see what they have released. Let's start with Gourmande Cosmetics because, like I said, they've also released quite a lot of things. They released the plastic palette, and then they released the Beauty Below palette. Then they had those skincare like bands for, like, I feel like this is like a little bit of a, not a throwaway release, but it was a release. Those like bands that you put on your wrists and on your head to be able to get, you know, not get water on you when you're washing your face. Then they had the Jordan Liberty Masterclass reveal and release this year, the second round with Ellis Atlantis. Then they re-released the Sugar and Spite, and then they also had a collection with Microsoft, which was a Rotten collection, and they just released the Haunt Me palette. And again, it is December, and they are still releasing stuff. Which, I mean, again, so did ColourPop and and so did NYX as well. But it is crazy how there is releases almost every month of the year, and they have released 7 eyeshadow palettes this year. So the second one, which is Unearthly Cosmetics, like I said, they've also had a lot of releases this year, but not all of them have been eyeshadow palettes. So they started with the little 9-pan palettes, the Shadowed Petals and the Murky Meadow. That was the first one. Then they had the Menacing Metals lipsticks. This was a release of metallic lipsticks. Then they had a little Thinking of You for Valentine's Day. Then they had a highlighter, which was a collab with Sander, which was called Ooze. This is a green highlighter. Beautiful highlighter. Again, that was just a highlighter. It was not a palette. Then they had incandescent glowing blushes. Beautiful blushes. They released those in the springtime because I know we got those when we were at the Creator and Friends event. And then they released the Shadow Sculpt Ghoul Garden, which was a eyeshadow palette. Then they had another lipstick release, and they released the Menacing, the satin lipsticks together with Courtney Quarantine. There were 3 different shades. Then they released the Gothic Romance, one of the best eyeshadow palettes of the year. Has my eyeshadow palette ranking gone up when this video goes up? I think so. And if you've seen that video, you know that that collection is so up in the top. It's like the dark horse of this year. It's such a good palette. And then they released like an single shadow collection that was the Shatter, Snowfall, and Cursed Winter collection. Those were beautiful. And then the Dead Cute, which is also an eyeshadow palette. Definitely a lot of releases. Definitely a lot of things. But I would say not all of them, at least, are eyeshadow palettes. So in a way, I did not think that Unearthly was going to be number 2 on this list, and I think it's because not all releases have been accompanied with an eyeshadow palette. Number 1 is going to be Bella Beauté Bar. There has been a lot of releases from them this year. They have released 10 eyeshadow palettes in 12 months, which I'm going to be honest with you, I think is a smidgen too much. I've said that I think that my like Goldilocks happy middle is 3 to 5 releases a year. Or 3 to 5, I don't know, palettes a year. I mean, I guess you can have other small things in between, but more than that, and I feel like it becomes a little overwhelming, quite honestly. So Bella Beauté Bar released Morally Grey. That was a 9-pan palette and 2 highlighters for Valentine's Day. And then they re-released Pastel Garden, and then they re-released Smoky Glam, and then they released Green Goddess palette plus highlighter, Ocean Jewel, Unoriginal Nudes, and then they did with Newport, they did the Coalescence palette, also beautiful palette. It was also really high up in my ranking. And then they had the Dreamscape, Come Play With Us, Crystallize, and yeah, Crystallize just came out. And that's a lot. That is a lot of palettes. And I don't know how I feel about that really. I don't know, like, how much is too much? What is your happy middle? What do you think is a good amount of releases? Enough so that you feel like you can still snag some things from your favorite brand each year, but not enough so that you feel like you can't keep up if there is like a brand that you like to pick up something maybe from every release. I would love to hear about it. And when it comes to 2024, let's compare it. So we had in the top of 2024 was Glamlight. 11 releases. Did you think Glamlight was going to be on top this year? They have been snoozing compared to other indie brands. Then was Unearthly Cosmetics, and then it was Bella Beauté Bar. Isn't that interesting? I will say number 4 was DD's Signature both this year and last year, but Glamlight was number 5 this year. So they definitely were chilling in 2025 compared to 2024, which was kind of crazy for them. But again, here comes back to my like hypothesis, like how I feel about what is a lot of releases, because like what I feel is a lot of releases, or what I think is a pricey eyeshadow palette, it doesn't mean anything because it's just my opinions. What you think matters too. I would love to hear your thoughts about this, because like I also think that there are some brands like Lunar Beauty, they had one launch this year and it was the contour sticks. I think that's too little for me to keep being super intrigued by a brand. I think I need more than one release a year, at least 2. When it's not an eyeshadow palette, are you still like super intrigued by it? Does it need to be an eyeshadow palette? Because I know from numbers, both with me and other indie brands, that people are more interested in eyeshadow palettes than other products, regardless of what the comments will say, regardless of what you think right now, the numbers don't lie. People are just more excited about an eyeshadow palette, but I would love to hear your thoughts about this. I would love to hear what you think about this. And my hypothesis, do you feel like these numbers surprise you? Do you feel like a brand is releasing more if it's always an eyeshadow palette? Or do you feel like a release is a release is a release? Because I will be honest, I do think that when a brand releases an eyeshadow palette with every launch, I subconsciously think that they release more than other brands that may release as much, but just not an eyeshadow palette with every launch. I had no idea NYX was gonna have this many launches this year. It shocked me to see how much it was, quite honestly. Because also remember, when NYX releases something, they'll release like a lip product in like 15 shades. That's a lot of SKUs. And it's very interesting to see the statistics and be like, when we talk, you know, in new makeup releases or in forums or in the comments, and we say, wow, this brand is releasing so much. It was really interesting to see it black on white in an Excel spreadsheet. This is what that feeling amounts into. This is how many releases makes us feel, wow, that's a lot of releases. Let me know if these numbers surprise you. Let me know your thoughts down below. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave, because I am still uploading every day until Christmas, and then I might take a little bit of a break over Christmas because I'm visiting my family and my husband's family in Sweden, which is gonna be amazing. If you like the video, please leave a like, give a comment, maybe share the video with your friends. It really helps out, and I will see you tomorrow for a new video.